Hello and welcome to the pre-performance talk for Opera Grand Rapids' production of Gilbert and Sullivan's The Pirates of Penzance. My name is John Jones, the president of the Friends of the Opera and past treasurer and board member of Opera Grand Rapids. As a lifelong lover of opera, this is my 5th season giving these talks. These talks and the projected English super titles for Opera Grand Rapids productions have been sponsored by the Friends of the Opera since its founding in 1974. Friends of the Opera, or FODO, works to support opera awareness and education and seeks to make opera more accessible to people of all ages. Please consider supporting our many efforts through a membership at membership.fodogr.org. Opera is the culmination and convergence of so many art forms and artisans, giving it the nickname the Queen of the Arts. It takes an orchestra, singers, production crew members, set builders, costume designers, and volunteers many months in preparation before the production that you'll see this weekend to ensure it's a success. One of the things I always like to note about opera over other art forms is its lack of amplification. The singers on stage are projecting based upon their body's own natural ability. No microphones and no amplification or speakers. Let's get on to the core of the talk. We'll cover details about the story of the Pirates of Penzance, its creators, Gilbert and Sullivan, details about the composition and premiere, the characters, and give an overview of the plot as well. The Pirates of Penzance, or The Slave of Duty, is a comedic opera in 2 acts with music by Arthur Sullivan and a libretto by William S. Gilbert, the famous British duo known as Gilbert and Sullivan. The opera's official premiere, we'll talk more about why it's not quite the official later, took place in New York City's Fifth Avenue Theater on New Year's Eve, 1879, and was well received by audiences and critics alike. Pirates was the 5th of 14 Gilbert and Sullivan collaborations, yet was their only U.S. premiere. Its formal London debut was April 3, 1880, at the Opera Comique, where it ran for 363 performances. The plot of Pirates of Penzance revolves around Frederick, who, having made it to his 21st birthday, is released from his apprenticeship, more like an indentured servitude, with a band of tender-hearted pirates. He meets Mabel, the daughter of the Major General Stanley, and the two fall instantly in love. But this is opera after all, and it could never be so simple. There's a catch. Frederick learns that he was born on the 29th of February, a leap year, and so technically he's only 5 1/4. He must serve for another 63 years to make it to his real 21st birthday. Bound by his own sense of duty, Frederick's only solace is that Mabel agrees to wait for him until he is extracted from that servitude. Leading up to Pirates was Gilbert and Sullivan's HMS Pinafore. A successful run in London afforded them and their producer, Richard D'Oyley Carte, the ability to go out on their own, so to speak. No longer did they need the financial backing of others who would collect much of the profits for themselves. While Pinafore was running strongly, Gilbert was eager to get started on their next opera collaboration, and he began working on the libretto in December of 1878. Much like many stories in operas, the plot of Pirates wasn't a new one. But at least in this case, it was cobbled together with pieces of their own work instead of a stolen idea from someone else. Gilbert and Sullivan had each written comic works that involved pirates or bandits earlier in their careers. Gilbert reused several elements of his 1870 one-act piece, Our Island Home, which had introduced a pirate chief instead of a pirate king. His name was Captain Bang. Captain Bang was mistakenly apprenticed to a pirate band as a child by his deaf nursemaid. Bang, like Frederick, had never seen a woman before, being a pirate out at sea, and felt a keen sense of duty to remain in servitude until his 21st birthday. Gilbert and Sullivan had also inserted into Act 2 an idea that they first considered for a one-act opera parody in 1876. It was about a conflict between burglars and the police. and that burglars are able to escape the notice of an oblivious father of a large family of girls. Sullivan began composing the score for Pirates in England. However, upon arrival to New York, he realized that he had forgotten the sketches for Act 1 back at home. How he did such a thing, I have no idea. Apparently he was in a hurry, but in a day where faxing and email didn't exist, he had to rely on his memory to reconstruct the songs and arias and pieces and scores from memory instead of using what had originally been done, and some of the works were recreated altogether because he forgot it entirely. For the entrance of the women's chorus, they used a piece from their own opera, Thespis, which had not gone over terribly well, but that particular piece had some resonance with the crowd. Given no one was likely to remember it, Climbing Over Rocky Mountain, the name for the particular piece, was quite literally ripped out of the Thespis score and inserted into Sullivan's manuscript for the Pirates of Penzance. Sometimes we forget that cut and paste at one time was quite literally cutting and pasting instead of just our digital versions of word processing nowadays. As was his usual practice in operas, Sullivan left the overture for the last possible moment, often sketching it out and entrusting its completion to an assistant. In this case, it was the company's music director, Alfred Sellier. The work's title, The Pirates of Penzance, is a multi-layered joke. On the one hand, Penzance, southern coastal region of England, was a docile seaside resort at the time of its writings, not the place where one would expect to encounter pirates. On the other hand, the title was also a jab at the theatrical pirates who had staged unlicensed productions of HMS Pinafore in America. I mentioned that Pirates of Penzance was the only Gilbert and Sullivan opera to have its official premiere in the United States. Officially because it wasn't actually the first performance. At the time, American law offered no copyright protection to foreigners. After the pair's previous opera, HMS Pinafore, had achieved great success in London in 1878, something like 150 American production companies quickly mounted unauthorized versions that often took considerable liberties and paid no royalties to Gilbert and Sullivan. Gilbert and Sullivan had hoped to prevent further piracy by having the premiere of their next opera in America, before others could copy it. They even delayed the publication of the score and libretto, trying to make it harder to reproduce. They succeeded, but only for a while, until Pirates 2 was pirated. Now about the real premiere. In order to secure a British copyright, a performance had to be done there as well. So, on the afternoon before the American premiere, a D'Oyly Carte touring company gave a perfunctory copyright performance at the Royal Bijou Theatre. It was organized by Helen Lenoir, who would later marry D'Oyly Carte. The cast was also performing Pinafore in the evenings. They received some, but not all, of the music for the Pirates of Penzance only 2 days before the production. Having had only one rehearsal, they performed the work while carrying scripts on stage with them, wearing whatever costumes were conveniently available on hand. Let's not even talk about what the set looked like. Shortly after the premiere, D'Oyly Carte sent 3 touring companies all across the East Coast and Midwest for a U.S. tour. The U.S. playing Pirates and Pinafore both, in fact. Sullivan's prediction was correct, and after a strong run in New York and several American tours, Pirates opened in London on April 3rd, 1880, and ran for 363 performances there. It remains one of the most popular Gilbert and Sullivan's works. Let's talk through the roles of the opera. Mabel is a soprano, and she is the love interest of Frederick, who is a tenor, and he is the pirate's apprentice until, as we mentioned, his 21st birthday. The Pirate King is a baritone, and Ruth is Frederick's nursemaid and the pirate maid of all work. She is a contralto. Police Sergeant is a bass, and Major General Stanley, the parent or the father of the main female characters in the opera, is a baritone. Pirates, the police, and his other daughters are members of the chorus. A synopsis. Off the coast of England, Frederick, a young man of 21, or so he thinks, celebrates the end of his apprenticeship to a band of pirates. He believes the pirate way of life is wicked, and that the crew should consider a respectable lifestyle. The Pirate King claims that, compared to the respectable lifestyle, piracy is honest. Frederick prepares to leave the pirate ship with his new nursemaid, Ruth, in tow. On the beach, they stumble upon a group of beautiful young women. Frederick asks them to help him reform from his pirate way of life. All reject him except for Mabel. The two quickly fall in love. The pirates return to storm the beach and capture the young women, intending to marry them. The women's father, Major General Stanley, arrives and objects to his daughters being married against their will. To save them, he claims to be an orphan. As orphans themselves, the pirates were sympathetic and agreed to release their captives. Later at home, the Major General laments about his lie, and his daughters try to comfort him. But the police sergeant arrives and tells them that with Frederick's help, he is prepared to arrest the pirates. Frederick considers this an opportunity to atone for his whole life of piracy. The Pirate King and Ruth arrive and inform him that he was to be apprenticed until his 21st birthday, and he was born on a leap year, February 29th. He's actually only 5¼ years old and must serve for another 6+ decades. The Pirate King insists that Frederick honor his duty and return to his pirate way of life. Upon realizing this, Frederick tells the Pirate King of the impending attack now that he's back in the pirate fold. Before leaving, Frederick meets with Mabel and tells her of his plight, and they agree to be faithful to each other until his return. Mabel tells the police that they will have to face the pirates alone, not knowing the pirates were also planning their own attack. The pirates attack the Major General's house and easily subdue the police. The sergeant begs for mercy in the name of Queen Victoria, for whatever that was worth. Ruth reveals that the pirates are in fact nobility, and the pirates free Major General Stanley out of their sense of loyalty to the Queen. The Major General, happy to have his daughters wed noblemen, offers the pirates their hands in marriage as thanks. All join in celebration of the approaching weddings. The Pirates of Penzance was performed for over a century by the D'Oyly Carte Opera Company in Britain. The only reason they stopped is because the company closed after 100 years in 1982. Modernized productions include Joseph Papp's 1981 Broadway production, which ran for a total of 787 performances. It won the Tony Award for Best Revival and the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Musical. It even had a 1983 film adaptation. It has had several revivals over the last 2 decades, including at the Chicago Lyric Opera, where a concert version was performed earlier this month, in October 2022. Pirates remains popular today, taking its place along with the Mikado, which Opera Grand Rapids produced in the 2019-2020 season, and HMS Pinafore, as one of the most frequently played Gilbert and Sullivan works. So, bring out your peg legs, your eye patches, and parrots, and enjoy Opera Grand Rapids' production of Gilbert and Sullivan's Pirates of Penzance.